Morning, everybody. You're tuned into Craig Call. We're back. Well, that was a good way to start. Well, I never. So anyway, it's the 27th of December, guys, 2022. Yes, it's still 2022. Don't wish it away. You know, you can still change the world by 2023. You know, like Mr. Ike says, just say no. That's all you got to do, guys, is just say no. Just say I won't comply, and then don't. If everybody stands up and says no, and the way he puts it, no, then you won't have to fucking do anything you don't want to do ever again. You know, these guys only ever gain their power. They've only got control over you because you give it to them. I mean, I've been saying that fucking donkeys. I've been saying it for a very long time, and it's true. So anyway, and I must admit, it's nice to have that. I mean, it's obvious. It's not about having it confirmed by somebody, which is what I was going to say. It's nice to have it confirmed by somebody, you know, with a greater platform. It just is, isn't it? It's not about having it confirmed. What is, and it's as simple as that. So anyway, been doing a bit of thinking lately, and I'm looking around at the world that we now live in and the inflation crisis that's happening all over. And it's pretty much all over the world, but it's definitely across the entire UK. This inflation crisis. Now, it's affecting everything. And in my opinion, as it usually is on this channel, even when we're talking about whiskies and stuff, in my opinion, it's connected. And you can see how this slots perfectly into what's going down with regards to the Great Reset and stuff like that. If you don't know anything about the Great Reset, just type it in. There's loads of videos, there's loads of information, there's loads of stuff to read out there to clue you up on the subject. You know, Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, all of these things. Go and have a look. Look who's connected. Look at the players. Look at the people that talk about this stuff and promote it. You'll start to see patterns. You know, going back many, many years, all the way back there. So anyway, think about this. Just three aspects. You've got fuel, you've got farming, and then you've got the distribution of the farming, which requires fuel. Stuff like this. Think about that little cycle there. And I mean, I know everybody hates distribution. You know, you're on the motorway, you get stuck behind, you know, you're on a two-lane motorway. You've got one lorry overtaking the other, taking up both lanes. They can't get past each other very quickly. One of them's doing, I don't know, 52 miles an hour. The other one's doing 54. It's a 2 mile per hour difference in speed. So it's going to take them a while to get past each other. Everybody gets pissed off with it, don't they? But you see, how pissed off would you be if you went to the supermarket one day and there was nothing on the shelves? Well, you see, if these people don't get where they're going, you know, without distribution, without road freight, there'd be nothing on the shelves at all. So first and foremost, show a bit of compassion. Just remember, you know, show a bit of unity with your distribution. Because without that, there is nothing. You know, like, everybody hates truckers, everybody hates distribution, but where would you be without them? You know, everybody hates them until they can't get what they want. So maybe you should let these guys overtake one another. Maybe if they need to swap lanes on a motorway, you should flash them and let them out. And take 10 seconds, 30 seconds, perhaps a minute out of your day so that somebody can do their job properly. You know, courteous. Be courteous, because so that they can do their job properly and get where they're going. These guys are on the clock. You know? And that means fuel. what they're doing is they're using fuel. Now you've got to think about this. If you're trying to centralise power, and in some circles, power, if you're trying to centralise power, then ultimately what happens is you need to shut down as many as you possibly can of the smaller businesses that are easy to swallow up. The bigger ones, you'll have to take more time, and if they can survive, then you're probably going to try and infiltrate and buy them out, or, you know, bring them over to make them so that they're so big that they become part of certain circles, and then they're turned onto your agenda, perhaps. Maybe that's the way it works, I don't know. But anyway, you know, speculatively, either way, to centralise more and more power and to centralise more and more wealth, what you have to do is shut down as many as you can so that you can swoop in and take over, or at least people that are connected to your agenda can do so. Therefore, centralisation, because everybody's one common mindset. So centralisation is about, ultimately, a small group of people eventually owning everything, but to begin with, they'll perhaps allow their affiliates and stuff to do so that they can eventually shut down their affiliates. You know, keep your enemies close and all of that. So, what are you going to do to squeeze them out? Well, first of all, you've got to look at it as a three-pronged attack. You take out certain businesses by, well, I mean, it all works in tandem. And this is the crazy part. This is like the beautiful part of the plan. Because it's kind of perfect. You know, this is why you got to say we're living in the system of a genius, because everything just works so fluidly for their gain. Excuse me. You've got the fuel crisis. The fuel prices are rising, so not all companies are able to buy the fuel in order to distribute whatever it is they need to distribute. Almost everything, when it comes down to produce that you consume food-wise, even bread and things like these, it all comes from somebody farming something somewhere. So if you hike the prices up of food, well, people can afford less. So what do? You hike them up, people afford less. What does that do? It basically stops people buying so much, which means the demand is now less, which means farmers end up going out of business because they can't survive on the small amounts that they are now able to sell, or because the demand is so low, the value of whatever it is they're selling has now gone down with it. And you get these big companies saying, well, instead of giving you, 3 pence a potato, we'll give you 1 pence a potato, which means to us 3p to 1p, that's a 2 pence difference. To a farmer, they're talking about 2/3 of their income, on gross. So that's a huge difference to somebody that's producing en masse, right? That's like you walking into work, say you get paid £1,000 a week, now you're getting paid 350 quid. It's a big, big difference, okay? So ultimately, once you've done with the farmers, what happens is the people that distribute those things for the farms, well, now there's no business for them to actually fulfill. There's nothing to distribute because the farmers aren't producing anything. And because the farmers aren't producing anything, farms go out of business, which means, hey presto, somebody's got to come in and buy that farm. What's been happening in America just lately? Bill Gates has bought up the majority of the farmland. Go and look it up, it's not a lie. Go look it up. Bill Gates, excuse me, I don't know what's going on today, has bought up a mass amount, the majority of the farmland over there. I'm not sure of the correct figure. So then ultimately now what happens is you control what is grown, which you look into things like GMOs, the destruction of the organic seed the organic seeds. My God, we're headed into literal agricultural apartheid here, because these people aren't going to stop until they've achieved their goal. And the way to get there for these people is to destroy everything natural. It stands to reason when these people are talking about transhumanism. Is that a natural way to exist? No, it's not. Would people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and all of these people be into transhumanism? You're damn right. What are they dealing? Technology, AI, of course. But you know, that's just another facet to the stone that this ripples off into. You know, this is why the subject is so vast. If you try and explain, you know, the Great Reset or the global takeover, you know, to anybody, you can't just say the reason why, because it's many, many reasons that make up one. So anyway, right, you've gotten rid of the farmland, and somebody's come in and bought them. So now they control and regulate whatever it is that's grown. The distribution sector then starts to go under. And because, you know, there's these smaller companies that rely on things like leasing equipment, smaller companies that haven't got the business, the contracts to survive. Perhaps they distribute from farms and from these smaller places to the bigger ones, because the bigger companies, the bigger haulier companies, are doing the bigger work, the more prominent work for the larger companies, because they've got the supply chain, you know, the actual logistic solutions to, you know, be able to sort out and do what these bigger companies require, like massive supermarket chains, you know. So you're not going to give your work as a massive supermarket chain to a smaller company, because they haven't got the amount of, you know, they haven't got the quantity of logistical power with regards to how many trucks, how many trailers, how many people they've got working for them to actually fulfill the demand that you have. So a lot of these small businesses will eventually go out of business, you know, because they won't have any business. So then you've got more unemployment, and nothing is getting distributed. Now, if you want to own the distribution sector, why wouldn't you at this point? Because you've got the farms, you've got what's being grown. You've squeezed people out by hiking up the price of fuel, which basically takes away people's ability to not only farm, but it also takes away people's ability to distribute. All right, now you own the distribution, so you can then start to bring in rules and regulations also to quash people out, the last remaining people, a bit like when they legalized ganja over in America. If you've seen Murder on bloody whatever, Murder Mountain, I think that's what it's called, the documentary on Netflix, it goes to show you how through legislation they cripple the actual grassroots, pun intended, of the industry itself. You've got all these hippies that went up there and started just growing ganja, and then through the legalization they thought, well, brilliant, now we can just grow ganja. But no, now you need permits, now you need all these different things. So legislation simply means strangulation of the individual. And basically that's what will happen with things like the distribution sector. You'll get regulation upon regulation upon regulation, and it'll strangle out these people that can't afford to pay the you know, the fees in order to stay above the cut of the jib, so to speak. Now, that's a speculation on my part. you know. So take from that what you will. Maybe it's got something to do with, you know, the transhumanist element as well. I mean, how many adverts have you seen now for trucks that aren't even driven by a human being anymore? I saw an advert the other day, not necessarily an advert, but like a promotional video for a truck that doesn't even have the front cab on it. It's literally just the 6 wheels, and that's it. And then like a bit at the front, it looks like the bonnet of a car. And what that does is it hitches up to the trailer and pulls the trailer on its own. It's like these driving assist cars. It's like they creep in with this tech. You've got so much assistance on a truck these days that you don't even have to brake at roundabouts. You don't even have to fucking do any of these kind of things, because it'll do it for you. If you set that button to on, you get too close to a car on the motorway, you've got your cruise control on, it'll slow you down to match it. Now this is in cars and everything. People love it because it means they have to do less, because people are fucking lazy. Alright, people don't like using their brain, and this is the problem. People don't like using their brains, so their brains are turning to mush and allowing, you know, because they're allowing computers to do more of their thinking for them. You know, the calculator, case in point. I mean, I use a calculator, but how many people from back in the day said that the calculators would be the wreck of mankind? Because now you're not using your head anymore to make, you know, to add 1 + 1. You know, it's right there, isn't it? So, and because people are using technology, it's now a snowball effect. What's happening is people are getting dumber and dumber, dumber and dumberer, because they're no longer having to use their brain. So it's a slippery slope. So the less you use it, the less you want to use it, which means the less you will use it. There's always more tech out there to satisfy your thirst for stupidity. Write that down and quote it. So here we have it. You've got the crippling of industry and farming, because you've got the prices of everything going up, the inflation of fuel, which is required to actually farm, actually distribute. You've got, therefore, the centralisation of both aspects due to the price being raised of all produce, which means demand goes down, which means the price comes down, which means you can then go in and buy up all of these businesses, all of these farms, so you can centralise the lot. And then when you eventually buy these larger companies, or you legislate these companies to say that since they're now, it's easier to control the few than what it is the many, right? Remember, these people are the few, so they don't want loads of people to have to control. So what they will do is try and get people in a smaller amount. So let's just say, for instance, you've got the same amount of people, you've got 500 people, but they're working for 5 different companies. It's harder to get 5 different companies to toe the line. So now you get everybody, all these 500 people working for one company. All you've got to do is control the legislations of one company. Then you control all 500 people in one swoop. So that's basically what they're doing. Accumulating everybody into the same place. So then they can just basically throw out these legislations. And what do? If you want to stay in business, and all the business is yours, and you're making a fat buck because ultimately, you know, you've monopolised because you've been able to survive this crisis, well, you're going to toe the line. And if they say, well, because human beings are now stupid, because they are, human beings are now stupid, so ultimately you've got to start letting robots do the thinking. And again, snowball effect. Everybody wants to let robots do more of the thinking, so they do. Makes things easier for them. So now, it's legislative now that at least 50% of your workforce has to be these robotic trucks. Because guess who owns the companies? Guess who's going to own the companies for these robotic trucks? Or at least own the patents to the technology that's in them? People like Tesla's, you know, Elon Musk, people like fucking Billy Goat Gates, all of these twats that are got their fingers in all these different pies. Think about the global picture here. What have you got? You've got absolutely everything that people need to survive being controlled and crushed and centralized by the same common goal. That's what you've got, and that's where we are right now. If you look at distribution, you look at farming, and you look at like all of the hikes in price, you start to see a big picture, and it all fetters off into all of these different aspects. Now, I think I've given a lot of food for thought, and if you'd like to go away and think about any of these things and perhaps research some of your own stuff, that would be great, man. Because see the bigger picture, just because the bigger picture, bro, you know. And on that note, I'm going to wish love and peace to all things everywhere. This is Crack Course signing off. Peace.